US Donald Trump says US is ready to strike 52 Iranian sites. US and Iran on the brink of war by News 786. The president said the targets represented 52 Americans who were held hostage in Iran for more than a year from late 1979 after they were taken from the US Embassy in Tehran. Shortly after the president's tweet were posted, the website of a US government agency appeared to have been hacked by a group calling itself Iran's cybersecurity group hackers. Who was Iran's Qasem Soleimani and why was he killed by US? The insight of US-Iran rising tensions, and will Soleimani killing spark a war? As head of its military abroad known as the Quds Force, Soleimani was the mastermind behind the country's activities across the Middle East and its real foreign minister when it came to matters of war and peace. He was widely considered an architect of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's war against rebels in Syria, the rise of pro-Iranian paramilitaries in Iraq, the fight against the Islamic State group, and many battles beyond. Charismatic and often elusive, the silver-haired commanders were revered by some, loathed by others, and source of myths and social media memes. As far back as 2013, former CIA officer John Maguire told The New Yorker that Soleimani was the single most powerful operator in the Middle East. When his end came, it was violent and sudden. On 3rd of January, the Pentagon announced that it had carried out a successful operation to kill him at the direction of US President Donald Trump. Soleimani is believed to have come from a poor background and to have had very little formal education, but he had risen through the Revolutionary Guards, Iran's elite and the most powerful force, and was reportedly close to Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. After becoming commander of the Quds Force in 1998, Soleimani attempted to extend Iran's influence in the Middle East by carrying out covert operations, providing arms to allies, and developing networks of militias loyal to Iran. Over the course of his career, he is believed to have aided Shia Muslim and Kurdish groups in Iraq, fighting against former dictator Saddam Hussein, as well as other groups in the region, including the Shia militant group Hezbollah in Lebanon and Islamist organization Hamas in the Palestinian territories. Qasem Soleimani's assassination followed a sharp escalation between the US, Iran, and Iran-backed groups in Iraq following the death of a US military contractor in a missile attack on the US base in Iraq, for which the US held Iran responsible. The US responded with his airstrike on the Iran-backed militia Khatib Hezbollah. Militia supporters then attacked the US embassy in Baghdad. Tensions between the US and Iran had been rising since the US pulled out of a nuclear deal between Iran and the world powers to curb Iran's nuclear program and prevent it from developing nuclear weapons. The US has also reimposed sanctions on Iran, sending its economy into free fall. For more current affair news, subscribe News 786, like and share the video. General Soleimani was widely seen as the second most powerful figure in Iran behind Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The 62-year-old spearheaded Iran's Middle East operation as head of the elite Quds Force and was hailed as a heroic national figure. But the US branded the commander and the Quds Force as terrorists, holding them responsible for the deaths of hundreds of US personnel. The general was killed by an airstrike at Baghdad airport early on Friday on the orders of President Trump. The president said the action was taken on top, not start a war. Will Soleimani killing spark a war? President Donald Trump has warned the US is targeting 52 Iranian sites with strike very fast and very hard if Tehran attack Americans on US assets. The president's remarks followed the US assassination of Qasem Soleimani, a top Iranian general, in a drone strike. Soleimani's killing was a major escalation between the two nations, and Iran vowed to take severe revenge. Writing on Twitter, Mr. Trump accused Iran of talking very boldly about targeting certain US assets. He said the US had identified 52 Iranian sites, some at a very high level and important to Iran and the Iranian culture, and warned them they would be hit very fast and hard if Tehran struck at the US. The president said the targets represented 52 Americans who were held hostage in Iran for more than a year, from late 1979 after they were taken from the US Embassy in Tehran. Shortly after the president's tweets were posted, the website of the US government agency appeared to have been hacked by a group called itself Iran Cybersecurity Group Hackers. A message on the American Federal Depository Library Program site read, "This is a message from the Islamic Republic of Iran. We will not stop supporting our friends in the region, the oppressed people of Palestine, the oppressed people of Yemen, the people of Syria government, the people of government of Iraq, the oppressed people of Bahrain, the true Mujahideen resistant in Lebanon and Palestine. They will always be supported by us." The web page contained a doctored image of the President Trump, depicting him being hit in the face and bleeding at the mouth. This is only a small part of the Iran's cyber ability. Mr. Trump's tweet followed a huge funeral procession for General Soleimani held in Baghdad, where he was killed in a targeted drone strike on Friday as he left the airport in a convoy. Mourners waved Iraqi and militia flags and chanted, "Death to America." Several rocket attacks shook the area shortly after the procession, including one in the green zone near the US Embassy. The Iraqi military said nobody had been hurt. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the rocket attacks. Pro-Iranian militants have been blamed for other recent attacks. Soleimani's body arrived back in Iran on Sunday, the country's IRIB news agency reported. With Iran's already threatening harsh reprisals for the killing of the Quds Force commander, President Trump has clearly determined the best way to de-escalate is to raise the stakes in advance, making clear what will happen if Tehran follows through on its threats. The Trump tweet is curious in many ways, not least the symbolic mention of 52 Iranian targets being held at risk, a reference to the 52 US hostages seized in the US Embassy in Tehran back in November 1979. His mention of target important the Iranian culture suggests a much wider target list than just leadership, military, or economic sites. President Trump is struggling to establish some kind of deterrence, but the ball is now very clearly in Iran's court, and it is very hard to see how Tehran can fail to act. Donald Trump has pursued a contradictory policy ever since he abandoned a nuclear agreement with Tehran, increasing economic pressure, threatening military action, but actually doing very little even when Iran shot down a sophisticated US drone and struck oil installation in Saudi Arabia. Above all, he has repeatedly underscored his and Washington's fatigue with its military involvement in the region. This, as much as anything else, has undermined US deterrence, something Mr. Trump is now seeking belatedly to restore.